So the fact of the matter is, let me ask, if I was to ask you, when's the last time the state raised the sales tax? How many of you would say yesterday? And the time before? The day before, right? When was it? It was 1983. What was the economic time? It was the worst recession before this one. It was a Republican governor. The fact of the matter is, this is not about partisan politics. This is about fundamentally saving our safety net, education, and public safety in the state of Washington. So while they may have additional money, my priorities remain the same. I don't believe that we should cut K through 12 and higher education like we were forced to do in my budget. I don't believe we should cut developmental disabilities or senior citizen services like was cut in my budget. That has to be fully restored. And I don't believe we should let those who are sentenced to prison out 5 months early and then not supervise them when they get out and leave our communities at risk. Those priorities remain the same. So, to me, this is all about our future. Now, I know there's been some suggestions about, well, surely there must be some gimmicks you can come up with. Well, I got to tell you the truth. The truth is, we're coming out of the recession, but it isn't going to be like this. It isn't going to be vertical. It's going to be long haul. It's going to be hard. So we're going to come out of this recession over the long haul. We need to understand that we have to be smart about what we do today. We need to ensure that our seniors have a right to live with respect and in dignity, and the dignity of their own homes if that's what they choose, in their communities or are developmentally disabled. We need to make sure that those values that you share are the values that that budget shares. A budget is a document of values. It's not a document of numbers. The numbers are nothing. It's the human faces behind the numbers that really mean something. So as you go to the Hill today, remind them, this is their legacy. They have to stand up for the people of the state of Washington and the values that we share. And I believe we share the same values. Since 2008, we have stepped up to the challenge. We have one of the best bond ratings in the country. Wall Street looks at us as having managed our way through this, unlike many others who are virtually in a state of bankruptcy like California and other states. At the same time that we have done that, we have had historic reforms. They have been right. They've sent us on a trajectory that will help us in the long haul. But we cannot continue to cut and cut and cut and have our safety net frayed in a way that we leave behind the very people that I think we ought to be working for every day to ensure they get what they need. We cannot leave behind particularly our poor children by not giving them the kind of break they need in education so they can do a good job. And we cannot leave our communities unsafe. That's the values of the people of the state of Washington. Those are my values. We've worked together throughout the entire time I've been in office. We have made good progress. We cannot give up. There is light at the end of the tunnel of the recession. Let us not look back on this historic time and say we failed our values, we left people behind. Let us stand up and do the right thing for the people of the state of Washington. Thank you very much. Walt has asked that I take a couple questions. Please.
Steve Seago, Odessa, Washington. I'm a volunteer driver for mobility services. This last session, you got the volunteer drivers from our resident to picking up a client to wherever they're going to, and now cab drivers are taking these same trips, a lot of these trips, and they're the only one that's making that money. I was wondering how that is saving money for anybody other than the cab companies.
So he's talking about, you couldn't hear in the back, could you? Okay, so he's talking about a program where people would drive some of our folks who needed someone to help them get to, whether that was a doctor's appointment or what have you. It was cut under the guise that it was going to save money, and now cab drivers are the ones that are taking these folks. That's why you have to be smart when you get into these situations. Things superficially look like, well, if we cut this, we could save money, when in fact we don't, okay? So let me ask you if we can work on that, but let me give you a couple of examples. If you cut mental health today too dramatically, the consequence will be we will pay much, much more over time. If we fail to provide educational opportunities to our young children, early childhood education, for example, we will pay much, much more over time. So it isn't so simple. It isn't, frankly, just fix it. I read that line, just fix it. It doesn't work that way. Again, there are human beings behind every number. You cannot just, without your heart and your head, make budget cuts. And you have to be very smart. When you cut prevention, you cost more in the long haul. So I share your concern. They need help, I need help in how those cuts should be done in a way that doesn't turn its back on our values and doesn't, in fact, cost us more, sometimes even in the short term, but I know full well in the long term. So that's, again, a partnership we need to continue to have. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
With DSHS coming in and making cuts, like the grocery shopping and the laundry if it's off-site, not being able for the caregivers to do that, and so there's lots of vulnerable that can't get their laundry done and get food on their tables. What are you going to do about that?
Okay, I got to stop for a moment. Okay? I'm going to tell you what I'm experiencing. Okay, you bet. We have cut $10.5 billion. $10.5 billion. The revenue that we've been able to get over the last 2 weeks is $433 million. Everybody who's cut believes that now we should be able to restore it. And while I'd like to say let's do that, you and I both can do the math. It's not possible. So while my heart goes out to the fact that we can't do those things anymore, that doesn't mean we won't forever. But what it means is we're going to have to turn to family members, to friends, to neighbors, to our nonprofits, to our faith community, to us as Washingtonians, to step up and step in and help. I'd like to tell each and every one of you, whatever cut you're bringing forward now, it will be restored with the $433 million. But I want to put it in perspective. $10.5 billion has been cut. We only have received $433 million. We still have a $1.1 billion shortfall, and we have a state Supreme Court case that says we have got to step up and fund K-12 in the state of Washington, or we're in violation of our own Constitution. So please don't think that while my heart goes out to any and every one of these issues you will raise with me, that there is a short-term fix here. There is not. I want to be open and honest and candid with you as we move forward and as you go to the Hill today. But we have got to find new and innovative ways to get through this tough time, so when we come out the other end, we can make sure that we're doing the very kinds of things that you're talking about. Because our people deserve it, our people need it, but right now, it's going to be each and every one of us stepping up and helping out in ways that we might not have done yesterday, but for us to get through it, we're going to have to do it today. Yes?
So what you're saying is that as a caregiver, you want me to accept these 8-hour-a-week cuts and volunteer that time? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is for those, not you as the caregiver, you're the person that's working, doing it every day. I'm saying those who are not doing that are going to have to volunteer and help out. Now, again,
what about the wages that I lost when you cut these hours?
folks, again, I'd like to say with the $433 million, we would restore every cut of the $10.5 billion. It's not possible. And I will tell you, those legislators want to do exactly what you're talking about. They desperately want to do it. They don't have the revenue. The question is, will they go out to the ballot? Will they ask the voters? I took a stance in November. I don't know that they're going to do that, but without more revenue, the choices they are making are this. Do we face the state and say to the court, we're not going to fund basic education? Do we cut basic health? Do we cut developmental disabilities? Do we cut food for people? Do we take health care away from children? There is no simple answer to the problem that we are in. We all need to step up, work together, get us through the tough time so that we can get back to where we think we're providing the necessary services for the people of the state. Yes, ma'am.
Governor, I understand and I hear what you're saying, but things are so bad right now. What's it going to take to move this legislature or to move us as a state to realize that we need to make a change in how we fund the services and the government of this state?
I agree with you.
You're right.
I agree.
There's no way that we can pay you for a full 40-hour work week. We just don't have the money. And we just keep batting this ball around. It's like a big beach ball for the last 7 years down here because it's been bad for 7 years. It's just, there's more air that gets in the ball and we bounce around even more. I don't know what the answer is, but personally, I'm tired of people ignoring the people that are in the trenches every day. I'm one of those sandwich people. I've got my mom's going to be 80. I've got 3 kids, one just graduated from Western in December. Yay! But I've got 2 others that are in college, and I'm looking at increasing double-digit college tuition for the last 6 years. And my Western graduate can't find a job. So we're putting kids in school, and we don't have jobs for them at the end of the time that they get out to pay back their grants, to pay back their loans, to be revenue generators instead of revenue eaters.
So let's talk about the problem that legislature faces right now. I gave them in November a list of what I consider to be tax loopholes that they could address. It takes a 2/3 vote. I can tell you that I believe today they're going to pass a couple of those. One, for example, big banks and mortgages is $18 million. That's all it is.
Not enough.
Not enough, okay? And as I total up all the ideas that they think they might get passed with a 2/3, not enough. So you ask yourself, why are we in this situation? Because the people of the state of Washington passed the initiative that required the 2/3 vote. Now, what else did they do? What else did they do? We put, in my personal opinion, a paltry 2.5 cents on a can of pop for a limited period of time, 3 years, and the voters said no. Let me also remind us, we went out and we said, let's tax the high-income earners so that we can provide education. And the voters said no. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've gone out and polled whether I could pass my half penny. And while the polling is, yes, I can get over 50%, now that's not good enough to actually run it and be successful. So here's the dilemma that we face. I am sympathetic with everything you're going to tell me today. I have no money. And when I've asked for the people of the state of Washington to step up and help out financially with 2.5 cents on a can of pop, or a tax on high-income earners, which I also supported, they said no. And to put an exclamation point on it, they also said, and oh, by the way, if you're going to pass any tax, you have to do it with 2/3, which is a virtual impossibility up there to any degree that will really help you, or to help all of us.